The crisp scent of pine filled our home, a smell I'd always associated with joy and togetherness. We'd just finished decorating the tree. My son, Leo, had hung the final ornament, a clumsy clay snowman he'd made in kindergarten. My wife, Clara, plugged in the lights, and the room was bathed in a warm, festive glow. It was perfect. The first sign that something was wrong came later that night. I woke up just before midnight, thirsty. As I walked past the living room, a soft sound drifted out. It was a whisper, faint and raspy. I peered into the darkness, where the colored lights of the tree cast dancing shadows on the walls. The whispering seemed to be coming from the tree itself. I shook my head, blaming it on my half-asleep mind, and went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. This time, the whispers were clearer. I crept to the living room doorway and listened. A tiny, sibilant voice was speaking. It said, he never told her about the money he lost, the money for the house. A cold dread washed over me. That was my secret. A failed investment I'd hidden from Clara, hoping to make the money back before she ever found out. How could anyone know? I stared at the tree, my heart pounding. My eyes landed on a small, porcelain angel ornament near the top. Was it my imagination, or did its painted-on smile seem more like a sneer? I tried to tell Clara the next day, but the words wouldn't come out. How could I explain that our Christmas decorations were whispering my deepest shames? She would think I was losing my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the clock to strike 12. When it did, I slipped out of bed and went to the living room. Clara was already there, standing frozen in front of the tree. Her face was pale in the glow of the lights. Another voice was whispering now, this one higher-pitched, like a twisted doll's. It came from a glass bauble, a shimmering red orb. She still dreams about him, the bauble hissed. The one who got away. She wonders what her life would be if she'd chosen him. Clara looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and guilt. My own secret felt insignificant now. The silence between us was heavy, filled with years of unspoken thoughts. Then, another voice joined in, this one childish and cruel, emanating from Leo's lopsided clay snowman. I broke the window. It giggled. Not the neighbor's kid. I lied. I'm always lying. It was our son's secret, a small transgression he'd been too scared to admit. One by one, the ornaments came to life. A tin soldier confessed my father's hidden regrets. A glass reindeer whispered Clara's mother's secret envy. Our family's entire history of secrets, big and small, was being aired out by these festive little spies. We stood there for what felt like hours, listening to the ghosts of our past. There was no anger, no accusations, just a profound, shared sadness. These pretty little things we hung on our tree each year had absorbed all the things we couldn't say to each other. They had become vessels for our silence. Finally, I walked over to the wall and unplugged the lights. The whispering stopped. The room plunged into darkness, leaving just the two of us standing there. We didn't need the ornaments to tell us what we already knew. We needed to talk. The next morning, we took down the tree. We packed every single ornament into a box, drove it to the dump, and left it there. Our house felt a little less festive after that, but it also felt a lot more honest. Some secrets, we learned, are heavier than any ornament. Thanks for watching. The first real snow of the year is always magical, isn't it? For my sister, Lily, and me, it meant a day off school and the perfect chance to build a snowman. We rolled 3 massive snowballs, stacked them high, and gave him 2 crooked branches for arms. For eyes, we used lumps of coal we found by the old fireplace, and a carrot for his nose. He wasn't perfect, but he was ours. We named him Frosty, of course. He stood proudly in the center of our backyard, a cheerful, lumpy guardian. That first evening, as dusk settled, I glanced out the kitchen window. Frosty was there, his coal eyes fixed on the house. It felt odd, like he was watching. I shook it off. It's just a snowman, I told myself. The way the shadows fell must have been playing tricks on my eyes. But when I went to bed, I couldn't help but peek through my curtains. There he was, a pale silhouette against the moonlit snow. His head seemed slightly turned, angled more directly toward my window. Impossible, right? The next morning, I woke up to Lily screaming my name. I ran to her room, and she was pointing frantically out her window, which faced the other side of the yard. Look, he moved, she cried. I followed her finger. Frosty was no longer in the center of the yard. He was now standing right by the old oak tree, at least 20 feet from where we'd built him. There were no tracks around him, just smooth, undisturbed snow. It was as if he'd just appeared there. My heart hammered in my chest. Maybe Dad moved him as a joke, I suggested, but my voice trembled. We both knew Dad wouldn't do that. We spent the day inside, too scared to go out. Every time I dared to look, Frosty was still there, by the tree, his coal eyes staring blankly. But the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. It was a cold, prickling sensation on the back of my neck. That night, a blizzard rolled in, rattling the windows and howling through the trees. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, a loud thud came from downstairs. It sounded like the back door. Lily crept into my room, her face pale with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. We huddled together under my blankets, listening. Then we heard it. A slow scraping sound. Scrape, scrape, drag. It was coming from the hallway, getting closer to my room. My door handle began to jiggle. Slowly, silently at first, then more violently. Someone, or something, was trying to get in. Lily and I held our breath, tears streaming down our faces. We were frozen in terror. The jiggling stopped. A shadow fell under the crack of the door. A tiny trickle of water started to seep in, pooling on the wooden floor. Then, a small, black object rolled under the door and came to a stop in the middle of the room. It was a lump of coal, one of Frosty's eyes. We never saw the snowman again. When morning came and the storm had passed, he was gone. The only things left in the yard were 2 crooked branches and a single carrot lying in the snow. We never told our parents what happened. How could we? But every winter, when the first snow begins to fall, I lock the doors, draw the curtains, and pray we don't get enough to build a snowman. Some things are better left frozen and forgotten. Thanks for listening, and if you like this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay safe. The sleigh bells didn't jingle with cheer anymore. They chimed with a hollow, metallic clang that echoed through the silent, snow-dusted streets of Northwood. This town had forgotten. The last flicker of belief had been snuffed out years ago, replaced by cynicism and the cold glow of screens. But Santa still came. He had a tradition to uphold, a list to check. It just wasn't the one they remembered from storybooks. He landed his sleigh on the roof of the old clock tower, the reindeer restless, their breath turning to frost in the frigid air. They knew this town. They knew what was coming. Santa slid down the chimney of the mayor's house, not with a sack of toys, but with an empty, cavernous bag made of something that looked disturbingly like tanned leather. Inside, the house was quiet. The family was asleep, no stockings hung by the fire, no milk and cookies left on the table. He moved through the rooms, a silent, hulking shadow. He didn't look for presents to leave. He looked for things to take. He passed the living room, ignoring the expensive electronics. He walked through the kitchen, uninterested in the gleaming appliances. He went upstairs, his heavy boots making no sound on the plush carpet. He stopped at the door to the master bedroom. Inside, the mayor and his wife slept soundly. Santa reached into his coat, but instead of a gift, he pulled out a small, ornate hourglass. The sand inside wasn't sand at all. It was a shimmering, golden dust. He crept to the bedside and held the hourglass over the sleeping mayor. With a soft whisper, a word in a language long forgotten, he turned it over. The golden dust began to drain. As it fell, a faint wisp of light, a shimmering essence, was pulled from the mayor's chest. It was his ambition, his drive, the very spark that made him who he was. The wisp flowed into Santa's empty bag, which seemed to drink it in greedily. The mayor groaned in his sleep, a subtle shift in his breathing, but he didn't wake. He would wake up in the morning feeling empty, hollowed out. The fire that once drove him to lead his town, now just cold ash. Santa moved to the next room, where the couple's teenage son slept. This time, he pulled out a different hourglass, one filled with a pale, silver dust. He repeated the ritual. The boy's creativity, his passion for art, the colorful dreams he painted in his sleep, they were all siphoned away, drawn into the dark void of the bag. The boy who woke up would find his sketchbook blank, his inspiration gone, the world suddenly muted and gray. House by house, Santa moved through Northwood. From one, he took a family's shared laughter and warmth, leaving behind only quiet resentment. From another, he stole a young woman's hope for the future, replacing it with a gnawing sense of dread. He took kindness, courage, curiosity, and love. He didn't take their possessions. He took the very things that made them human. By the time the first hints of dawn painted the eastern sky, his bag was heavy, no longer empty. It pulsed with a faint, stolen light. He returned to his sleigh, the reindeer stamping their hooves, eager to leave. As they ascended into the sky, Santa looked down at the town of Northwood. It was still there, physically unchanged. But it was a ghost town now, populated by hollow shells who would go through the motions of life, never knowing what they had lost. You see, Santa has to balance his books. For every town that believes, he gives. But for a town that forgets, he takes. He takes back the gifts of spirit and joy he once bestowed, leaving nothing but a cold, empty silence. So if you ever stop believing, listen closely on Christmas Eve. You might just hear the sleigh bells. And they won't be bringing you presents. They'll be coming to collect.